Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Rhapsody in Black by Marie Elena Alonso-Sierra, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1, Demi Plie. With eyes closed, Elena del Carral sank and rose slowly into her warm-up routine. She was alone in Studio 4 of the National Terpsichore Ballet in New York City, taking advantage of the 40 minutes of personal time before the rehearsal, which was to be followed by the audition. The role of a lifetime, if chosen as principal, or so everyone said. Elena wasn't that enthused. She suspected that there was more to this invitation to the audition than met the eye. Add to that her own personal reluctance and fears about finally disclosing the secret her mother had held close to her vest for more than 10 years, and she'd have a problem of major proportions. Well, not a problem per se, but Elena knew her revelations about Black Rhapsody would not be welcomed or applauded. Uh-uh. After the initial shock, the brokering would be fierce, not to mention the jealousy and bickering that would ensue. Elena simply wasn't ready for it. Ergo, her dithering during the past 5 years after her mother's death, whether to disclose the secret or not. And yet, this time, they'd forced her hand. Things could not remain as they had been, and all because of the stubborn arrogance and conceit of Broderick Newsom, Terpsichore's in-house choreographer, cum artistic director. Warm up, warm up, warm up, ignore everything for the moment. Elena forced herself to tune out conflicting thoughts in the normal murmurs, piano undertones, thuds from jumps, and the occasional 7, 8, and a 1 filtering through the walls and closed doors. She needed to warm up to her own music, her own tempo, detached from the world. She must focus on her body and muscles, her form, even when today her routine wasn't going smoothly. She was not at her best by any measure. Her muscles groaned and protested, her feet popped. She was stiff and tight. Then again, what the heck did she expect? She was still jet lagged, pissed, and disturbed, in that order. Well, no, that wasn't the order exactly. Elena sighed. Disturbed and pissed should be the sequence of priority. The lingering jet lag was not an issue. She could handle that on any given day. Focus, she chided. Tendu front, flex, point, close fifth, demi plie. Leg movement sequenced into a grand port de bras, stretching her arm and lower back forward until her nose pressed against her knees. She crossed her arms behind her ankles and leaned further into the stretch, her upper body melding into her thighs in a seamless line. Her spine popped in 2 places. Now that felt good. She feline stretched out and up, bent waist sideways into the barre, and continued the 360-degree port de bras, ensuing an overall lengthening of her deltoids, and her sudden chuckle bounced around an empty room. Good grief. She was now spouting jargon like the company's physical therapist. Elena studied her form on the wall-to-wall mirror opposite the beret. In the reflected image of the cadaverous rehearsal room, she resembled a stick figure bisecting the wall. She squinted, corrected a few things, and a few neck pops later, so soused into fifth, lifting her left leg into a high passe, and held her balance for a few seconds. Ever so slowly, she closed on fifth. Sentu. Repeat, demi plie. She started humming a familiar Chopin piano piece and added more degas, followed with grand plies, and finished the sequence with rond de jambe parterre and enlayé. By the time she reached her developments and grand battements, her entire body was soaked in sweat. When she walked over to her overstuffed bag by the door after she finished, her ballet slippers left small imprints on the floor. Flopping on the floor, she drank long and hard from her favorite hydration drink mix and blotted her sweat with her hand towel. Scavenging through her ballet bag, she found point shoes and rehearsal skirt and dropped both by her hips. She spread her legs in a final a la second split shifted her split position right and left to maximize stretch, mopped up more sweat, and finally lay supine. She hoped Frederick Bulliens, her colleague from Ballet Etudes and partner for the gala, would arrive soon. She wanted busy. She wanted light fun. Fred's cheerfulness was contagious, and his lack of guile was always refreshing. She really didn't want to think about the audition and what the reveal would entail. Once that happened, the rest of her day would be, well, interesting to say the least. Elena draped her damp towel in the lower barre to air, grabbed her toe shoes, and wound the ribbons around her ankles as if trying to strangle them. Let's face it, she hated confrontation. That was why she wanted out of New York as soon as possible. Wanted the performance gala to be over. Where the heck was Fred? After wrapping her rehearsal skirt around her waist, she beraded a few times to make sure she hadn't cut off circulation to her ankles. A few seconds later, she knew she'd tied her left point shoe too tight. She bent down and began adjusting the ribbons. Well, that is an interesting position. New ballet pose? Upside down and without bothering to fix her stance, Elena looked in the direction of the stranger's voice from between her legs. Her eyes roamed up from jeans that molded muscle legs stretched into forever, followed by a well-defined chest expanding a muted green t-shirt to fullness. The image finally topped by the man's head to create an upended exclamation point. She didn't recognize him. Then again, even though she knew most in the company, she had been away for more than 5 years, and the man could have come on board after her departure. May I help you? She asked, returning to her task. She balanced on her left foot and grunted with satisfaction. That was better. Doubt it. The man said and walked closer. Curly hair, like the eddies of sunshine, framed a golden ratio, symmetrical face. Light brown eyes studied Elena with curiosity and a tinge of humor. I must admit, though, you are a much improved version from Derek. At her expression, he laughed, deep paced, like molasses. Reception said that he'd be here for the rehearsal and the audition, he clarified. That's in 15 minutes. I'm Jake Forrester, by the way, he extended his hand. Haven't had the pleasure, but I'm assuming you're one of the guest artists for the gala? Elena shook smooth, strong hands, the grip solid. Wow, not only a killer smile, laugh, and body, but this man could be awesome at lifts. Elena del Carral, she answered, wondered if he was administration or a dancer at Terpsichore. He snapped his fingers. You're the invited principal from ballet at 2 days. Admiration coated his voice. I saw a short video of you dancing the adagio of Concerto in D with Frederick Bolland's impressive fall short as a descriptor. Elena blushed. She wasn't yet quite used to people gushing over the piece, her choreography. She thanked the good Lord every single day that the director of ballet at 2 days had been receptive to her idea, and once he had seen a small sample of the choreography she'd staged, had placed her work as part of the repertoire of the company. The European premiere 2 months ago had been a success, ranking her as one of the new up-and-coming ballet choreographers in Europe. She already had requests to stage Concerto in Stuttgart and London. Ah, stop the press. The prodigal returns. Time to kill the fatted calf. Oh, hell. Elena recognized the mockery and voice immediately. Justin. Justin Baccarat, ex-lover, conniver, exploiter, and all-around son of a bitch. She gave him a quick once-over as he strode into the room, sleek-muscled and an inch shy of 6 foot. He walked with the same arrogance and verve as 5 years ago, but there was a slight difference. His black hair, cut in his usual boyish bob, framed a square jaw that stretched skin, and his dark, penetrating eyes were puffy, his face not concealing the fact that he looked older and used. His cheekbones protruded further than before, and his thoracic cage stood out substantially, much more than she remembered. This image of Justin did not correlate with hers from 5 years ago, where he'd been fleshier, for lack of a better description. This Justin looked as if he'd melted all excess fat and sported only sinew, a look that didn't quite suit him. I see the years haven't changed your sunny disposition, she said, her voice dripping with a slight touch of venom. Praise just gushes out from your viper tongue, as always. And I see your bitchiness hasn't improved in 5 years, Justin responded, throwing his ballet duffel on the floor. He realized who was in the room with her and looked slightly abashed. Hi, Jake. Jake Forrester's lips twitched upward for the briefest of seconds. Her cheeks flared hot, like she'd poked her face too close to a fire. She never said anything disparaging of anyone, especially not in front of a stranger. but she couldn't help being snarky whenever Justin was around. Instinctual reaction. Sorry, she whispered to Jake and bewrayed to the back of the room. Forrester's smile grew wider. The ringtone of one of her brother's film scores echoed inside the room. She automatically went for her cell, then realized it was not her phone, but Jake's that was ringing. She stared at him in surprise. Hang on a sec. Jake strode toward the doors and stopped short where Elena stood by them. He leaned forward, catching her by surprise, lips grazing her ear. Never apologize about Justin, he whispered and left the studio, phone pressed to his ear. Elena released a breath she hadn't known she'd kept holding. The man filled his surroundings like dark matter in space, affecting and irradiating everything within reach. Unsettling energy, and not in a bad way, no. It was simply she hadn't felt this awareness in a long while, not even with Justin, when she'd first met him and fallen in love with him in a youthful naivete. Had she felt this disturbance in the force, to quote from her favorite science fiction movie. After the disaster of her relationship with Justin, no, you can't quite call it a relationship, and her abrupt departure from Terpsichore in New York, Elena hadn't even looked at a man, nor had considered dating one. She'd been too busy in her new home, learning the ropes in ballet 2 days, performing and creating her choreography. Maybe she was just out of practice where men were concerned. A wave of energy and noise erupted around her. The rehearsal group had arrived. Company class was over. Elena! The squeal and voice warned Elena that Francesca Mori had arrived. She braced for the upcoming hug, which was usually nothing but intense. Hey, Franny. Francesca Mori was and had been Elena's best friend since they'd met in dance school. At her friend's first développé, all their teachers had recognized innate talent. As a matter of fact, Elena knew many dancers who would kill for Francesca's ease of extensions, perfect point, arch, and jumping strength. It had steadily propelled her friend forward with the company until she'd made principal, which placed a bullseye on any dancer had they not been Francesca. Her friend was one of those rarities in the dance world. She was not ambitious. Her passion was to dance and dance only. Dance anything. Francesca didn't care if she was in the corps, as an extra, guest artist, or as a soloist. Her saving grace, seeing the world with the guileless eyes of a child and imparting good intentions to all. If it weren't for the fact, the aggressive heartbeats within the company would have destroyed her years ago. OMG, I'm so glad you're here, she gave Elena a peck. Why didn't you take class with us this morning? Elena's eyes glanced to Justin for a second. Oh. Besides, I wanted to say hi to Rick and Nat, take their class. Who's Rick and Nat? Came a voice from behind them. Fred, another squeal and a hug. Previous teachers of ours, Elena told her partner and messed up his hair. Bullions, you're late, she chided. I was on the phone with Amelia. Is the morning sickness under control? Elena asked. Fred's wife was pregnant with their first child. The doctor gave her something for it today and guaranteed it will help. She should be taking classes by the end of the week. Okay, everyone, gather round. Staccato claps centered everyone's attention to Annalise Minier, the company's repertoire. She marched toward the center of the room. Patrick Tandata, the company's rehearsal pianist, continued on his corner. Fred and Elena, you're rehearsing first. You can dance the balcony scene blindfolded, so I don't expect to give you too many corrections. Francesca, you and Justin are next. Mario and... She looked around. Where's Caro? Our diva must be on the phone with her latest, Justin said. Oh, shush, Francesca said and bumped him with her shoulder. Annalise ignored the exchange. Mario, you and she are next to last. Martina will cap rehearsals. Mr. Derek and Broderick should arrive shortly to welcome our guest. She nodded to Fred and Elena and scanned her schedule.